The Romanian presidential campaign starts today. Over 18.9 million Romanians are expected to vote in the upcoming elections on May 4th. There are 11 candidates in the election campaign, and 4 of them are independent.
According to polls, George Simion, the candidate of Alliance for the Union of Romanians, has the highest chance to enter the second round. 3 other candidates are competing for a place in the presidential finals.
Entering the race after Calin Georgescu's candidacy was rejected by the Central Electoral Bureau, the latest 3 opinion polls show that Simion might have between 29 and 35% of the votes. Looking at other high potential candidates, Nicu Șordan is the mayor of Bucharest.
Bun, noi avem o pre-campanie care se termină în 3 aprilie. Da, deci vorbim de un buget.
Crin Antonescu is the candidate of the 3 ruling parties, Social Democratic Party, National Liberal Party and Democratic Alliance of Hungarians in Romania. And Victor Ponta is a former Prime Minister of Romania. They are also understood to have chances to enter the presidential final round. These 3 candidates could gather just over 20% of the votes. Their percentages vary depending on the polls and the period when they were carried out. Although she came second in November elections, Elena Lasconi, the Save Romania Union candidate, has little chance of entering the presidential final round this time. On December 6, 2024, the Constitutional Court of Romania decided to cancel the first round of the elections on the grounds that the electoral process was flawed. The unexpected decision came only 2 days before the organization of the second round in Romania, while the voting process had already started in the diaspora. According to the intelligence reports, Russia conducted a broad campaign on social media to promote the far-right candidate, Calin Georgescu. Several investigations are still being carried out concerning this case. Meanwhile, the Romanian National Audiovisual Council has launched a campaign to combat illegal online content.
Noi când emitem un ordin de eliminare, indicăm conținutul primar, hai să spun așa, sursa pe care noi o avem. Dar nu ne referim la forma de împachetare, pentru că ea poate să fie, să zicem, este un clip scurt. Asta nu înseamnă că nu este același conținut. Noi solicităm platformei să-mi dea jos conținutul indicat.
The institution urges Romanians to report online videos that contain misinformation, incitement to violence or hatred.
Canada is urging Europe and the rest of the world to retaliate against Trump's sweeping tariffs. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly told Euronews her country had no choice but to respond with $60 billion worth of counter-tariffs. Joly says Europe and Canada need to defend themselves.
Not only are we leading the charge, we're the country at this point that has imposed counter tariffs the most against U.S. goods. We're working with the EU. I had just a conversation with the EU Trade Commissioner, Šefčovič. We're working also with Asian partners, and we'll continue to put maximum pressure.
Joly, reiterating that Canada is the US's biggest trading partner, remains confident that the American people are in disagreement with the White House's latest actions, as she believes they have a role to play in resolving the conflict.
The only way for President Trump to back off on his trade war is for American people themselves to say it's enough. And they are the ones that can create the political pressure within their own system to make sure that that's the case.
Joly also discussed why Canada needs to ensure that NATO remains united, emphasising that geopolitical chaos would only worsen global tensions.
We need to fight for our own interests, maybe on a trade war, or making sure that we have a united NATO. Because ultimately, who is gaining from all this? The erosion of the international system or some tensions amongst allies is our adversaries. It is China and Russia.
You can listen to the full episode next Monday on the Europe Conversation.
Foreign Affairs Minister of Canada.
North Macedonia warns of growing Russian influence in the Western Balkans if the EU doesn't commit quickly and clearly on enlargements. Talking to Euronews, Foreign Affairs Minister Tymcho Muczynski emphasizes the country's many difficult compromises for EU membership.
We've changed our flag, we've changed our currency, we've changed our constitution several times. We've even changed the name of our country. All with the promise of a window of opportunity that we've been told existed if we do these changes for our path towards the European Union.
Can I ask you a little bit about Russian interference in North Macedonia? I mean, one of the reasons why enlargement needs to happen quickly, they say, is because the countries in the Western Balkans need to be brought into the EU away from the Russian orbit. Is that something that you would agree with, that narrative, that premise?
I think enlargement needs to happen for many reasons, but one of these reasons, from a security perspective, is, of course, the malign Russian influence that has been existing in our region, that is there. I sometimes like to very openly point out that Russian influence, especially in our region, comes very cheap, and they know how to utilize it.
Muczynski thinks the credibility of the EU is at stake, and enlargement needs to happen to avoid giving ammunition to Russian propaganda.
There are malign actors out there who like to point the finger and say, do you really believe that the EU is honest in its intention for enlargement? Look at what they're doing to the Macedonians.
North Macedonia applied for EU membership 20 years ago, but the accession bid is at a standstill following a series of disputes with Greece and Bulgaria. Catch the full interview next week on the Europe Conversation.
It's the final day of the inaugural EU Central Asia Summit in the Uzbek city of Samarkand, where top EU officials have been meeting with the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan to discuss boosting trade and strengthening ties. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen began the day by announcing a €12 billion investment package to finance regional projects in transport, critical raw materials, water, energy and climate, and digital connectivity.
Strategic location can open global trade routes and investment flows, and these new investments will enhance sovereignty. They will strengthen your economies, and most importantly, they will make new friendships.
The summit comes amid the region's pivot away from Moscow following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a shift that Europe has seized on as an opportunity to present itself as a reliable partner in the face of global instability.
In today's international context, the importance of a functioning, rules-based multilateral order cannot be overstated. Our meeting today encourages even more European Union Central Asia cooperation in multilateral fora, reinforcing our shared commitment to a peaceful and prosperous global order.
The EU strategy on Central Asia also highlights the increasing strategic significance of the region, which is on the front lines of climate change, plays a crucial role in security, and is rich in natural resources.
They don't only have huge reserves of uranium, fourth largest reserves of gold in the world, but copper, various rare earths, which are all essential to digital growth, new economies, and it's here.
Leaders signed a joint declaration on establishing strategic partnership and agreed to hold similar summits every 2 years. World leaders have been reacting to US President Donald Trump's announcement of a 10% baseline tariff on all countries, with Australia threatening to use dispute resolution powers in its free trade agreement with the United States.
We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters. Our existing free trade agreement with the United States contains dispute resolution mechanisms.
China, which was hit with an extra 34% tariff, has said it will resolutely adopt countermeasures to safeguard its rights and interests, claiming Trump's so-called reciprocal tariffs violate international trade rules and amount to unilateral bullying. Japan, too, has called the tariffs extremely regrettable, with officials arguing Japan deserves an exemption considering the additional 24% levies already imposed on their country. And in South Korea, which was hit with a 25% rate, the stock market opened lower amid concerns over the tariff announcement. Although Canada and Mexico were exempt from this particular round, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said Ottawa will respond, as the current 25% levies on steel and aluminium imposed on both nations remain in place. The president of South Korea has been removed from office in a unanimous ruling by the country's constitutional court. Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached by the National Assembly in December, with his presidential power suspended after he imposed martial law, triggering the country's worst political crisis in decades. Following their ruling, the court justices said this act violated people's fundamental rights.
국민 주권주의 및 민주주의를 부정하고 병력을 투입시켜 중앙선관위를 압수수색하도록 하는 등 헌법이 정한 통치 구조를 무시하였으며
Anti-Yoon protesters welcomed the verdict with cheers at a rally near the Old Palace, while outside Yoon's official residence his supporters chanted angry slogans, calling anyone accepting the ruling their enemy. An election will be held within 2 months to replace Yoon, but is likely to be overshadowed by the deep-rooted political divide caused by the former president's impeachment.